Charlotte's housing market is making headlines yet again. Realtor.com just ranked Charlotte in the top 20 markets for 2025 with a massive projected 16% sales increase compared to this year. But here's the real question. Will this momentum last, or is 2025 the year you need to buy or sell? So stick with me, because in the next few minutes, we're going to dive into the latest November 2024 Charlotte market report just released from our MLS. And I'm going to break down what this means for you. Now, before we begin, my name is Mitch. I'm a luxury real estate broker here in the Charlotte and Lake Norman area. And of course, if you're considering buying or selling, whether it's in the next 60, 90, or even a year from now, my link to contact me is below. Please click that. And of course, my team and I will be in touch, but let's jump in. So I track 20 of the top submarkets in Charlotte, and you can see those here on the screen. The submarkets in green are the ones that had the highest average sale price appreciation, okay, November over November. And you can see Mint Hills at the top of the list had a 16% year-to-date price appreciation, okay, versus last year. Now, there's a couple things I want to point out here. You do have two lake markets sitting at the top of this chart. You've got Lake Wylie and Lake Norman. It's important to recognize this trend. With a lot of the disasters that happened with the hurricanes on the coastlines, there are a large contingent of people looking for waterfront markets that are away from, of course, these types of disasters. That's why Lake Norman and Lake Wylie, in my opinion, we're getting a lot of out-of-state buyers looking in these markets. I get calls weekly from people looking. I can tell you that's partially what's driving up the sale prices here. Now, keep in mind that the Lake Wylie and Lake Norman numbers you see here on the screen, those are the area of the lake and the surroundings. So I do a video on waterfront only. This number, of course, could be on and off market. So just keep that in mind. Now, if you go to the middle of the chart, right, these are the price appreciations from about 10 to 6%. City of Charlotte, if you have a Charlotte address, we're up 8.6% year to date for November. Average sale price is sitting at about $575,000. Now, you probably have seen tons of apartments going up around the city. I know I have. They're going up all over the place. I did a video on this. There's 117 people a day moving into Charlotte. And of course, there is still not enough homes for these people, which is why you're seeing all these apartments go in. Now, I will also tell you that the median sale price nationally as of November is $407,000 in the United States, and that is up 4%. So you can see that we are actually doubling that here in Charlotte, and we are slightly higher than that, but the affordability here in Charlotte is still better, okay, than it is in places like the Northeast, California, right? Maybe a place like Chicago, up into the west, northwest, like Seattle. Those are very expensive markets. We still have people coming to Charlotte, right, to enjoy the benefits of the affordability that's sitting here. So that's why, okay, we're seeing a continued increase in sale prices, because we still have a lot of demand for these homes, and there's just not enough of them, which we'll get to in a minute. Now, if you go down to the bottom of the screen, there was two markets that we saw had a average price decrease. And I talked about this in my last update. Uptown, of course, we know the story there, that a lot of the downtowns across the country are being injured by what I would consider the work from home. I know a lot of offices and some businesses are calling these folks back in 5 days a week. However, in my opinion, I don't think that this trend will stick long. I think over the next 10 years, you're going to see a lot more remote work, and the housing markets in the downtown took a big lick over the last 3 years as people bought and moved to the suburbs, as there was no reason to live downtown. That's why I think you're seeing the sale price drop in Uptown, because we certainly had our challenges there. Now, overall, right, we are up 6.9% in sale price average across all 20 of these submarkets. So, contrary to what you may hear in the news, right, if you hear, there's certain real estate bubbles happening, markets are crashing, remember, real estate is hyper-local. Here in the Charlotte area, I do not foresee a crash, and I know many people that I work with, top agents, brokers, financial advisors, do not see a crash here at all. We have too much demand. Places like Florida, where you've got a massive issue with hurricanes, you've got the huge issue with what I would call the condo cliff that's happening down there, with the increase in HOA assessments due to the fact that all these buildings now need the proper reserves to fix the buildings due to the condo collapse in southern Miami. So these are having a big issue in Florida. Texas is another market, right? Well, they overbuilt big time during the last 3 years. They're having a massive oversupply issue down there, specifically in Austin. Sale prices dropped 20%. Those are the two big markets where I think there's issues. But just keep in mind, Charlotte is not experiencing this problem. Now, if you purchased a home before 2020, just 4 years ago, you hit the real estate biblical appreciation in price that we've ever seen in this country. And you can see here on the screen, I always like to compare these charts and data where we're at to 2020. So in the last 4 years, you can see sale prices have increased, the average, 57% across all of these 20 submarkets. And some of them boomed even higher. If you look at the top of the screen here, Mint Hill, Lake Wylie, Lake Norman, 60, 70, 80% increase in average sale price. The city of Charlotte rose 58%. The reason why I point this out is you may be one of these people who bought a home before 2020 and you're probably sitting on an astronomical amount of equity, okay? This is something you're really gonna wanna look at in 2025 to consider, because we do expect the demand to come back. As you can see from Realtor.com, we think sale prices, or the transaction count, is gonna increase 16% from this year, which means there's gonna be a lot of demand coming this spring. If that happens to be you, definitely get in touch with me. I'll be more than happy to do a market review of your property, tell you where you stand. But I do want to point this out because no matter where you bought a house, if you bought one before 2020 in one of these 20 submarkets, you are sitting on a pile, in my opinion, of equity. Now, in regards to inventory, again, the top 20 submarkets you can see here, the average inventory, okay, across all these have increased 36%. We're at about 2.7 months, which is up from 2 months of last year for all these. Now, what does this actually mean? Well, there's more inventory building, okay, no question about it. We're starting to slowly see the rise of listings come back into the market from those historic lows we saw over the last 2 to 3 years, which was, basically anemic level of inventory. We are starting to come back. You can see at the top of this screen some of the larger increases in inventory in some of these submarkets, like, Mint Hill went up from 1.3 months to 2.3. You've got Kannapolis that went up, Waxhaw, Uptown, Huntersville. These do have some material impacts, of course, if you're listing a home. And then, of course, on the flip side, if you're a buyer, okay, this is important to recognize and track, because if you're thinking to buy in one of these areas, the inventory is climbing, which means there's more options available for you. So you're probably most likely to be able to negotiate a better deal. So that's why I like to share this with you, to keep you informed on the inventory levels. Now, in a balanced real estate market, typically we see anywhere between, I would say, 3.5 to 5 months of inventory, depending on where you're at. We're slowly creeping there in some of these areas, okay? We're not there yet, but we're almost there, which means, okay, that if you're a seller and you put your home on the market, okay, you're gonna have more competition. There's no question about it. Homes are taking longer to sell, which I'm gonna get to in a minute, but you're gonna have more competition. So what I like to tell all of my clients is this: make sure, right, that when you put your home on the market, it is in its best form, because believe me, the buyers now that are out there, they're gonna be more picky, okay, about the properties they're looking at. I see it every single day. So you just wanna keep that in the back of your mind. You also may hear that from some of your friends or family that, hey, homes aren't selling. That's false. They are still selling. However, the big difference is between now and what we had is basically you could list anything 2 or 3 years ago and it would sell. Whether that home needed a lot of work, wasn't updated, etc. Now, buyers are starting to be a lot more picky, okay? They're not willing to put in the work that the home needs. And why is that? Well, just like the sale prices rose, so did everything else. The trades, the cost of materials, everything went up. People know that if a home needs to be updated, they're gonna have to spend a significant investment into it to get it to what they need. So those are typical homes that I see that sit longer, okay, or may have the stigma of homes aren't selling. That's a small pocket of homes that need work. But if your home is in great condition, believe me, it'll still sell and there is demand. But I hope this chart gives you an idea of where the inventory situation is in case you're looking in one of these markets. Now, in terms of days on market, you can see here on the screen the average days until a sale now, which means from the time you list your house until you get a contract on, it's 38 days right now in Charlotte. That is up about 6% from last year, but not really material. It was 36 last year at this time. Now it's 38. Not that big of a change. However, in these various submarkets, you can see at the top of the screen, in some areas it increased what I would consider significantly. Look at Waxhaw. 27 days last year, jumped to 40. Okay, so if you're selling a home in that area, it's gonna take longer. Definitely areas like, Lake Norman jumped. Some of these other ones in Uptown, of course, Belmont. And then as you go down the screen, you have areas, of course, at the bottom in blue that are taking less time to sell, okay? Like in Kannapolis is down. Mint Hill, look at that, 46 days on market last year. Now we're at 32. The reason I want to level set us here on the days on market, because if your home is in one of these categories, which I'm sure it is, just keep in mind, it's taking longer to sell. It's not abnormal for a home to take 38 days right now in Charlotte for it to sell, okay? Now, that means a contract. It'll then be another 30 days, right, of inspections, et cetera, due diligence, financing, et cetera, to get through the deal. But this is a safe number if you're considering listing in 2025. That 38 days is about the time it will take to sell your property. Now, if you're a buyer, okay, this is also something to keep in mind. When a home first hits the market, strategy, right? If you really love it, definitely make an offer. However, there's another strategy in letting it sit for a little bit. Wait a few weeks to see what happens. If there's no offers, you may get a better deal once that seller adjusts that price. So that's why I share the days on market with you, because whether you're a buyer or a seller, this is really important information to know. If you have any questions, of course, reach out to me. Happy to take a look at whatever your situation may be, but definitely pay attention to the days on market. So looking ahead to 2025, I wanted to review an article from Realtor.com, as I mentioned. They track the top 20 markets in the country that are expected to increase in 2025. And as you can see here on the screen, they mention, these cities are where home sales are set to soar, okay? I wanted to point this out because Charlotte, okay, was ranked on this list. Now you got Colorado Springs as number 1, but as we scroll through here, Charlotte is actually on ranked number 12, and I've highlighted it here. You can see the projected increase in existing sales for 2025 is expected to be 16%. Now, this is a very good sign if you are a seller right now considering the 2025 market. Because of the attractiveness in our city and the amount of people moving here, okay, this lift in sale price or in transaction count is really going to help demand in 2025. So if you're watching this video and you're thinking about it, definitely keep this in mind, because this is a very attractive thing if you have a home to sell in 2025. Lastly, right, as I did a video on this, we've got about 117 people a day moving into our city. Okay, they did highlight that here in this article. That's really important to keep an eye on as well. And why are people moving here? As I mentioned before, cost of living, job opportunities, climate, location. You can get to the mountains and the beach very easily. North Carolina is a very attractive place to live right now, especially Charlotte, Wilmington area, Raleigh. They are certainly becoming big hubs. So I wanted to point this out because, again, 2025 is set to look really well for the Charlotte market. And again, we're set to rise 16% in transaction count. I hope you enjoyed the market report. If you have any questions on any of this data, please reach out. My contact information is directly below this video. Feel free to click that link, book a call with me directly. I'm more than happy to be a resource for you, whether you're looking to buy or sell in the Charlotte area. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, as I push videos like this every single week to keep you educated and updated on all things real estate in the Charlotte and Lake Norman area. But without further ado, guys, I appreciate your time, and I'll talk to you next week.